My mum's dementia was diagnosed at the beginning of 2024. It was either going to be Alzheimer's or frontotemporal dementia, and she got diagnosed with Alzheimer's. So the dynamic works as my dad and my mum live together, and I take her to multiple appointments, help with shopping, groceries, anything like that, hair appointments, and then just spending sort of time with her weekly.
The diagnosis was behavioural variant frontotemporal dementia, which is one of the rarer forms of dementia, which, because of where it's starts to affect, affects kind of personality.
We live a couple of hours away from my parents, so we see them fairly regularly, but obviously not 24/7.
If you don't spend that much time with him, it can appear that there's nothing wrong, and I think that, particularly pre-diagnosis, was so difficult for Mum, because she would, I think, continuously doubt herself. Is she making a fuss about nothing?
In the clinic with the specialist, that the family was all present, so all the kids, so mum, dad, my brother and sister, and that's when the consultant said that they got bad news for us, and explained that mum had FTD. We had never heard of what that meant and what that means.
I care for my mum, who has early onset dementia, in the form of PCA, which is post-cortical atrophy, which affects how she perceives the world. So it's a disconnection between her eyesight and how she processes it in her brain. I've been caring for her since 2018 now.
The main carer was my dad, who looked after mum, so he was more impacted by mum's illness during night times. So as an adult living outside of the main home, I could still go home and sleep, whereas the main people there would see the kind of nighttime scenario and how that play out. My mum used to wake up quite a bit at night and have some confusion about night and day eventually, so that was quite difficult for them. So my role, I guess, was trying to provide reassurance and help and support in ways that I could. I thought learning more about this disease, these illnesses, what's going to happen next, the behavioural changes, explaining that to the family was probably more my role. And also, where I could, just take my mum out and spend some time with her. And that felt really good, to spend the time with my mum. But probably the main differences for me versus my family who were living at home, where they were seeing the differences a lot more than I probably would.
Being an only child, it makes it really hard. It all falls on you, and it's always been me and my mum. And it's a bit strange because she's always been the carer provider, and all of a sudden that switches and you become a care provider, and you don't have necessarily, we don't think you have the skill set to deal with that. Whilst running your own life, you have to live two lives, like financially, emotionally, and you have to advocate for someone that can't advocate for themselves. I think I'd describe it as like having a child who is also your parent.
Being the adult child of someone with FTD, I think our experience has been very different to my mum's experience. So I think connecting with RDS is really important. It's been really important, certainly for me and probably for you as well, just because we live a couple of hours away from our parents. We're not seeing them day to day. Certainly for me, I think it's a really useful kind of reminder of what my mum's going through. It's such a useful reminder of like some of the things you need to do to be there for her, and things like, it sounds bad, but separating them. So they obviously spend a lot of time together, but giving them time apart and things like that is really useful. And so it prompts you to like develop a little action plan about little things we can do as children to support mum and dad. When I went part-time, I actually told work what the reason was, to look after my mum or to spend time with her. It was difficult at first to open up
at work with what was happening at home. You don't know how people react at work to that kind of information. But yeah, I kind of set out a case for just wanting to spend a bit of time, and also wanted to help my dad a little bit and break up his kind of week. So what I did was pick Wednesday as a midweek point where I could just check in. Initially, I just said to my dad, look, I'll take my mum for the day and just spend some time with her. And it's kind of a two-fold effect. One, giving me spending time with my mum on one side, but also giving my dad some respite at home and just letting him just get a lie in or something.
We feel a lot of guilt about being so far away from mum and dad. And I think, meeting other, adult children who, we're in this phase of our life where we've got, young children demanding jobs, and just trying to, how you kind of navigate that is quite tricky. So I think meeting other people that are in the same position of trying to navigate that as well is really, really valuable.
There are definitely ups and downs caring for someone with dementia. I think one of the hardest things is that mum is very quiet, and so sometimes it's hard to understand if she's okay, and I guess I find myself asking her quite a few times a day when I'm with her if she's okay, and she nods and she says she's okay, but I guess I can't help feeling that sometimes she's putting on a brave face. So not being able to always understand her, but you're just hoping that what she's saying is how she feels. So I think there feels like there's a disconnect sometimes, but we just have to find other ways of communicating with her and doing things that she enjoys.
One of the problems with this, or something we felt, I've always said you feel very isolated with this illness as a family. It's not a common situation to be in. In some ways, you're kind of predominantly left to work with this in your own way, in your own setting, and at home, with very little support in all respects. I'm talking about emotional, financial, mental, in every capacity.
Prior to getting care and an official diagnosis, I would have to get up at 5, travel to mum's, make breakfast and lunch, go to work, come home from work on time, so no lunch break, make dinner for both of us, then go home and go to bed, and that was a cycle for about 18 months to 2 years. When we finally got diagnosed, that's when stuff started to happen, support started to arrive. It's like a carrot and a stick type thing, so you can't get help until you have a diagnosis, but at the same time my mum didn't want to admit anything was wrong, so it was a really difficult period for me to navigate. You feel yourself breaking down. So I'd say one thing I did notice is I didn't realise I had this capability in me, which is a good thing, but also I don't want this to happen to anyone my age ever, so it's just unfortunate, really.
I've thought carefully about which friends I tell, because I have been anticipating maybe a lack of understanding, and I haven't really felt like I really want to kind of have to explain everything. But the friends I have told are very good listeners and do understand. I would say that it took a little while for my husband to understand, and I think he had to see for himself, I suppose, see the changes in our dad, to kind of then understand, and he's completely on board now, but I think it did take a while.
My friends have been amazing. I've got such a good group of friends. Everyone is on hand to help me, whether that's going for a walk, going for a coffee, cooking me dinner. My boyfriend's amazing. He's ran a half marathon to raise money for rare dementia support, so there is a lot of support.
You feel quite alone until you meet groups of other people that are suffering similar circumstances. But yeah, you notice a lot of people, they kind of ask, but they don't really want the answer. It's almost like they've ticked the good human box, but there's nothing from that. Or you get a lot of people saying, I want to come and see your mum or spend time with your mum, and I'm like, yeah, come through, and never turn up. And it's like, oh, how's your mum been? Like every 6 months, and it's kind of like, if you could be dead by now, you wouldn't know. Like they don't see the blood and guts. They like will happily walk with you in the park with your mum. There's a lot of blood and guts that goes into all of this, like, and you kind of feel a bit alone and isolated, which is fine. Again, it's taught me that I have these skills and I'm capable of a lot more than I thought I was.
If I was going to give advice to someone, I would say to seek help. Go to your GP. There's loads of resources online, and I think it can be overwhelming, but you don't know what you don't know, and I think the more you reach out and talk to people, the more you learn, and the more they can pass on in terms of wisdom and where to go or who to speak to, whether that's healthcare professionals, whether that's social activities, or anything of that kind of domain.
The period of illness, when you're in there, it feels like forever. That period does come to an end. So whilst you're in that period, it's the little things that make a difference in the end. You know, for me, in the end, having my mum do a lot of things for me when she was okay, cooking my food, do everything that you expect a mum or a mum would do, to just her towards the end, just calling me by my name, was such a big thing when I could hear her just say my name. So you kind of shift your focus into the smaller things and just value that time that you have, because you do end up coming out of that period, and then you reflect back on the grieving. I think it happens during that period itself. Is probably what I would say. You're already losing that person. Day by day. It's a progressive disease. It doesn't get better, but you do have good days and bad days. So you just make the most of those days.
The message I would share to other young people or adult children of people living with rare dementia syndromes is that you also need to be cared for. In a way, you can receive support, and that's okay. I know that your needs are quite different to, say, your mum or dad, the spouse of the person living with dementia, but actually you do have your own needs as well.
For other young people dealing with this, I'd say you're a lot stronger than you are, more than you think you are, and there's a lot of help online, especially, that you can reach out for, and I think use the people around you, like whether it be RDS or your GP, even your opticians, dentists, or whoever in a professional capacity. Use those people, because you never know who they might know. Don't be afraid to talk about it. I think getting mental health help is really important, and also to continue activities that make you happy. So do stuff for yourself. So, for instance, I love the gym, I love sport, and I gave that up for 3 or 4 years, and I was miserable. And once I started playing again, you feel guilty about taking the time out, but you can't fill another cup from an empty one. So you need to be in a place where you can look after someone. So look after yourself. That would be my key bit of advice.